أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pemirsa yang dirahmati Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, jumpa lagi di channel Zaman Akhir. Bagaimana kabar semuanya? Semoga berada dalam bimbingan Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala dan sehat walafiat. Pemirsa yang dirahmati Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, video kali ini akan menyajikan asal-usul dan sejarah bangsa Khazar. Bangsa Khazar adalah etnis Turki yang mendirikan kerajaan Khazaria pada abad ke-6 setelah kejatuhan Gokturk Khaganate. Setelah Gokturk runtuh, beberapa suku yang membentuk konfederasi membangun Gokturk saling bersaing menegaskan supremasi di antara mereka. Khazar mampu menegaskan diri setelah mengalahkan suku Bulgar. Suku Bulgar kemudian menyingkir ke barat melewati sungai Danube menuju Balkan dan mendirikan kerajaan Bulgaria pertama. Bangsa Khazar kemudian membangun kerajaan Khazaria sebagai penerus dari Gokturk Khaganate. Khazar adalah negara komersial yang terletak di persimpangan Asia dan Eropa atau Eurasia. Pada puncaknya, Khazar menguasai jalur perdagangan yang dikenal sebagai jalur sutra. Khazar adalah negara kuat yang memiliki pasukan perang yang signifikan. Pasukan perang Khazar adalah pasukan yang tidak boleh mengalami kekalahan dalam pertempuran. Jika mengalami kekalahan dalam pertempuran, pasukan yang kembali dengan kekalahan akan dibunuh oleh penguasa atau panglima kerajaan Khazar. Kerajaan Khazar membangun aliansi dengan Bizantium atau Romawi Timur. Aliansi antara Khazar dan Bizantium dapat mengalahkan Sasania Persia di daerah kekuasaan Persia di Kaukasus Selatan. Menurut keterangan yang datang pada kita sampai hari ini, bangsa Khazar beralih agama pada tahun 740. Bangsa Khazar beralih agama dari agama sebelumnya yaitu Tengrisme atau Shamanisme menjadi Yahudi atau Yudaisme. Sebelum kita lanjutkan menyaksikan video ini, ada baiknya berikan like, komentar, subscribe, dan tekan loncengnya.
Shortly after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, something very mysterious happened in that part of the world that historians have chosen to bury. A tribe called the Khazar chose to embrace Judaism. And so the world witnessed for the first time the very strange phenomenon of a non-Semitic people becoming Jews. Non-Semitic becoming Jews. And these people, the Khazar, chose to convert to Judaism, but they did so not for any religious reasons. They were not so much interested in the Kitab and to follow the law. They embraced Judaism for purposes of political expediency. They were sandwiched between Islam and Christianity, Byzantine Christianity, and they chose Judaism.
The origins and nature of the Khazars is closely bound with theories of their languages, but it is a matter of intricate difficulty since no indigenous records in the Khazar language survive, and the state was polyglot and polyethnic. The native religion of the Khazars is thought to have been Tengrism, like that of the North Caucasian Huns and other Turkic peoples. The polyethnic populace of the Khazar Khaganate appears to have been a multi-confessional mosaic of pagan, Tengrist, Jewish, Christian and Muslim worshippers. Some of the Khazars joined the ancient Hungarians in the 9th century. The ruling elite of the Khazars was said by Judah Halevi and Abraham ibn Daud to have converted to Rabbinic Judaism in the 8th century, but the scope of the conversion to Judaism within the Khazar Khanate remains uncertain. Proposals of Khazar origins have been made regarding the Hungarians, the Cossacks of the Don region and of Ukraine, Bukharan Jews, the Muslim Khmyks, the Turkic-speaking Crimeshaks and their Crimean neighbors the Crimean Karaites, the Moldavian Changos, the Mountain Jews, even some Subbotniks on the basis of their Ukrainian and Cossack origin and others. The late 19th century saw the emergence of the theory that the core of today's Ashkenazi Jews are descended from a hypothetical Khazarian Jewish diaspora which migrated westward from modern-day Russia and Ukraine into modern-day France and Germany. Linguistic and genetic studies have not supported the theory of a Khazar connection to Ashkenazi Jewry. The theory still finds occasional support, but most scholars view it with considerable skepticism. The theory is sometimes associated with anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism.
Who are the Khazars? Khazars are a fascinating Turkic people who apparently had a capital on the Caspian Sea. You can see here in this German language map at the city of Itil, right in the top right section of the sort of orange part of this map, the pinkish orange part of the map. And they actually had a civilization which lasted for several centuries and interacted with many of the other surrounding civilizations, including famously the early state called Kievan Rus, which formed kind of like the beginnings of the cultural patrimonies that were claimed by Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia alike. Also a significant historical part of the conflict today. The Khazars were a pagan tribe, like many of the groups of the region, but according to some interesting documents that have made their way down to us today, they apparently converted to Judaism in the year 740. The story of their conversion is rather amazing, and it is perhaps most well told in a book that has very little to do with history and a lot to do with philosophy and polemics. It's a famous work by Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, who was a scholar who lived in Spain several hundred years after the events described, and he wrote this famous classic work of Jewish philosophy called the Kuzari, which really means the Khazarian. In the Kuzari, he describes the legend of the conversion of the Khazar king, King Bulan, who was sort of faced with a difficult choice because at that time, Christianity was expanding throughout Europe, and Islam was expanding all the way across the coast of North Africa, and then moving upward into Europe as well, into Turkey, into the Balkans, and so on. And this King Bulan was troubled by this geopolitical situation, and also apparently motivated, at least as the legend has it, by a sincere spiritual longing to find the one true religion. So according to the legend, he brought together a sort of a trilateral debate team, a representative of Christianity, a representative of Islam, and a representative of the Jews. And they had this three-way debate. And ultimately, according to the legend, King Bulan converted to Christianity. Now, before we discuss the actual realities of the legend, we should understand how it is portrayed in the Kuzari. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi lived at that time in Spain towards the end of its so-called Golden Era, which was a period of remarkable coexistence between Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Jews in particular enjoyed tremendous freedoms to express themselves politically. Many of them held high office. There was a rather remarkable Shmuel ibn Nagrela, who was actually the general of a Muslim army for 16 years, an accomplished poet and a Talmudist to boot, all of these three things brought together in one particular individual, in many ways a lot like Maimonides, who was also a product of the late Golden Era, although he would ultimately be a victim of the reactionary period when Muslims would come from North Africa and insist that
Khazar state emerged from the far larger Turkic Khaganate as a result of political infighting. The Turkic Khaganate, also known as the Gokturk Khaganate, was a loose collection of tribal confederacies which exerted political control across vast areas of the Eurasian steppe, from Manchuria to the Black Sea. Civil wars led to the breakup of this enormous empire in the first years of the 7th century, splitting it into Western and Eastern Khaganates. The Western Turkic Khaganate existed for many decades afterwards, even providing military support to the Byzantine Empire in its wars against Sasanian Persia. However, the advances of the Tang dynasty in the east placed such political pressure on the Western Khaganate that it eventually dissolved in the mid-7th century. Against this fragmentary and unstable backdrop, two nomadic states established themselves to the west in the steppe north of the Black Sea, the Khazars and Old Great Bulgaria. Conflict between the two groups quickly followed, resulting in the Khazars asserting their military supremacy and expelling the Bulgars westwards. Under Aspara, the Bulgars crossed the Danube, creating the First Bulgarian Empire around the year 681. Thus the Khazar Khaganate rose from the ashes of the once mighty Turkic Khaganate. By around 670, the Khazars had conquered both the lower Volga region and the lands between the Danube and the Dnieper regions, firmly cementing their position around the Black and Caspian Seas. It was this strategic position, along the all-important Silk Road trade route, that would bring Khazaria great prosperity and influence in centuries to come.
History. The tribes that were to comprise the Khazar Empire were not an ethnic union, but a congeries of steppe nomads and peoples who came to be subordinated and subscribed to a core Turkic leadership. Many Turkic groups, such as the Oghuric peoples, including Saragurs, Ogurs, Onagurs, and Bulgars who earlier formed part of the TL Confederation, are attested quite early, having been driven west by the Sabirs, who in turn fled the Asian Avars, and began to flow into the Volga-Caspian Pontic zone from as early as the 4th century CE and are recorded by Priscus to reside in the western Eurasian steppe lands as early as 463. They appear to stem from Mongolia and South Siberia in the aftermath of the fall of the Hunnic/Xiongnu nomadic polities. A variegated tribal federation led by these Turks, probably comprising a complex assortment of Iranian, Proto-Mongolic, Uralic, and Paleo-Siberian clans, vanquished the Rouran Khaganate of the hegemonic Central Asian Avars in 552 and swept westwards, taking in their train other steppe nomads and peoples from Sogdiana. The ruling family of this confederation may have hailed from the Ashina clan of the West Turkic tribes, although Konstantin Zuckerman regards Ashina and their pivotal role in the formation of the Khazars with skepticism. Golden notes that Chinese and Arabic reports are almost identical, making the connection a strong one, and conjectures that their leader may have been Yipishekui, who lost power or was killed around 651. Moving west, the confederation reached the land of the Akatsaroi, who had been important allies of Byzantium in fighting off Attila's army. Rise of the Khazar state. An embryonic state of Khazaria began to form sometime after 630, when it emerged from the breakdown of a larger Gokturk Khaganate. Gokturk armies had penetrated the Volga by 549, ejecting the Avars, who were then forced to flee to the sanctuary of the Hungarian plain. The Ashina clan, whose tribal name was Turk, appear on the scene by 552, when they overthrew the Rurans and established the Gokturk Khaganate. By 568, these Gokturks were probing for an alliance with Byzantium to attack Persia. An internecine war broke out between the senior Eastern Gokturks and the junior West Turkic Khaganate some decades later, when on the death of Taspur Khagan, a succession dispute led to a dynastic crisis between Taspur's chosen heir, the Aba Khagan, and the ruler appointed by the tribal high council, Ashina Shetu, the Ishbura Khagan. By the first decades of the 7th century, the Ashina Yabgutang managed to stabilize the western division, but upon his death, after providing crucial military assistance to Byzantium and routing the Sasanian army in the Persian heartland, the Western Turkic Khaganate dissolved under pressure from the encroaching Tang dynasty armies and split into two competing federations, each consisting of 5 tribes, collectively known as the 10 Arrows. Both briefly challenged Tang hegemony in eastern Turkestan. To the west, 2 new nomadic states arose in the meantime: Old Great Bulgaria under Kubrat, the Dulu clan leader, and the Nushibi subconfederation, also consisting of 5 tribes. The Dulu challenged the Avars in the Kuban River Sea of Azov area, while the Khazar Khaganate consolidated further westwards, led apparently by an Ashinid dynasty. With a resounding victory over the tribes in 657, engineered by General Su Dingfang, Chinese overlordship was imposed to their east after a final mop-up operation in 659, but the two confederations of Bulgars and Khazars fought for supremacy on the western steppeland, and with the ascendancy of the latter, the former either succumbed to Khazar rule or, as under Asparuk, Kubrat's son, shifted even further west across the Danube to lay the foundations of the First Bulgarian Empire in the Balkans. The Khaganate of the Khazars thus took shape out of the ruins of this nomadic empire as it broke up under pressure from the Tang dynasty armies to the east sometime between 630 and 650. After their conquest of the lower Volga region to the east and an area westwards between the Danube and the Dnieper, and their subjugation of the Onogar-Bulgar Union, sometime around 670, a properly constituted Khazar Khaganate emerges, becoming the westernmost successor state of the formidable Gokturk Khaganate after its disintegration. According to Omlyan Pritsek, the language of the Onogar-Bulgar Federation was to become the lingua franca of Khazaria as it developed into what Lev Gumilev called the Steppe Atlantis. Historians have often referred to this period of Khazar domination as the Pax Khazarica, since the state became an international trading hub permitting Western Eurasian merchants safe transit across it to pursue their business without interference. The high status soon to be accorded this empire to the north is attested by Ibn al-Balhi's Farsnama, which relates that the Sasanian Shah, Huzra I, Anushirvan, placed 3 thrones by his own, one for the king of China, a second for the king of Byzantium, and a third for the king of the Khazars. Although anachronistic in retrodating the Khazars to this period, the legend, in placing the Khazar Khagan on a throne with equal status to kings of the other 2 superpowers.
Terima kasih sudah menonton video ini. Jangan lupa subscribe dan bunyikan loncengnya.